Hello, everyone. I wanted to share a special moment that recently took place. My wife and I decided to throw a dinner party at our home to reveal some big news to our families. We're expecting. It's been an exciting journey for us. We've been married for 2 years now, but have shared our lives together for 5, ever since we met in college through mutual friends. We've essentially grown together, both personally and professionally, as we've been working for the same company since graduating. Now at the age of 26, we're thrilled to embark on this new chapter of our lives as soon-to-be parents. The dinner party was our way of bringing our loved ones together to celebrate the start of another beautiful adventure. Recently, I made the significant decision to leave my job and venture into a business partnership with one of my close friends. After thorough discussions, my wife and I agreed that she would be the primary financial supporter until the business became profitable. Fast forward to a year later, and I'm happy to report that our business is flourishing. Seeing our success, my wife is now considering leaving her job to join us in this promising venture. Given our current financial stability and the momentum we've built in our professional lives, we felt it was the perfect moment to start a family. Despite being relatively young, the news of our pregnancy filled us with joy, prompting us to gather our families for a celebratory announcement. My immediate family consists of just my parents, as I'm an only child. However, I share a strong bond with my maternal aunt and her family, who have always been an integral part of my life. For our special announcement dinner, I extended an invitation to my close-knit family, including my aunt, uncle, and cousins, who are just a few years my junior. My family, though small, is very dear to me. On the other hand, my wife's family is more extensive and closely connected, leading to a larger guest list for her side. Her parents, maternal uncle and family, and maternal grandparents were all invited to join the celebration. She mentioned that her sister wouldn't be able to attend due to illness, but it's an open secret that her real issue is with alcohol, not health. Since her divorce last year, she's been struggling, recently losing her job and moving back in with her parents. Her days are now filled with nothing more than drinking and sleeping, a lifestyle that's caused concern among everyone who cares about her. Knowing this, I couldn't help feeling a sense of relief that she wouldn't be coming to the dinner. The last thing I wanted was any sort of disruption during a moment meant for joy and celebration. However, the potential for drama wasn't entirely avoided, given that my mother-in-law was among the attendees. While we don't have a contentious relationship, it's not without its challenges. She has a clear preference for her daughter, my wife's sister, which sometimes makes interactions with her a bit strained. Despite this, we were determined to keep the focus on the positive news we were excited to share with everyone. My mother-in-law has been the primary enabler of her daughter's behavior, despite objections from my wife and her own husband. We have our differences on this issue, but I've chosen to stay out of it, respecting the boundary that it's not my family, hence not my place to comment. Nonetheless, it was only right to extend an invitation to my wife's family for our special announcement dinner. Originally, the plan was to host just her parents. However, upon learning that my aunt and her family were invited, my mother-in-law insisted we do things properly by inviting additional relatives. My wife acquiesced to her demand, eager to avoid any conflict before sharing our joyous news. This adjustment shifted our plans from a close-knit gathering to a larger celebration. Though slightly upset by the change, I held my tongue, valuing peace and the overall joy of the occasion over my preference for a smaller event. We proceeded to welcome the extended family, and the celebration was unfolding beautifully until the moment of our announcement. As we shared our exciting news just before lunch, the reaction was overwhelmingly positive, with warm congratulations, hugs, and pats on the back flooding in for both of us. However, my mother-in-law remained seated, offering no more than a peculiar smile. Her lack of enthusiasm was puzzling, but we chose not to dwell on it. This moment was about our happiness and the new journey we were embarking on, and we were determined to maintain the celebratory spirit of the day. Following our joyful announcement, we proceeded to serve lunch, which my wife and I had prepared together. The meal was met with enthusiastic approval, garnering compliments from nearly everyone, except notably my mother-in-law, who remained conspicuously silent. The atmosphere was light and filled with convivial chatter, until my mother-in-law abruptly shifted the mood with a question about our financial readiness for the baby, highlighting the expenses involved and suggesting we consider our finances more carefully before proceeding. Her unexpected query introduced a moment of discomfort, but I managed to respond with confidence, explaining that the business I co-founded was thriving and that our financial situation was more than adequate to welcome a new member to our family. My wife lightened the mood with humor, and we navigated past the awkwardness. Though my mother-in-law seemed persistent in her line of questioning, her next inquiry, asking about my specific monthly earnings, took me by surprise. Discussing finances openly is something I'm generally open to, but this felt inappropriate given the time and setting. I expressed my discomfort with discussing my financial details publicly, suggesting that if she had genuine concerns, we could address them privately later on. Yet the conversation took another unexpected turn when she brought up a seemingly unrelated incident from a few weeks prior. On that occasion, my mother-in-law had called me unexpectedly while my wife was out. Typically, her calls are inquiries about my wife, but this time she expressed a desire to vent. I saw it as a potential moment to foster a closer relationship and agreed to listen, hoping it might serve as a chance for us to bond in a new way. During our conversation weeks prior, my mother-in-law extensively lamented the challenges of supporting her adult daughter, who was struggling with unemployment and a drinking issue, without any financial contribution from her end. She detailed the burden this placed on her and her husband, expressing how it was depleting their savings and becoming unsustainable. I offered my sympathy, understanding the difficult position she was in, but the call ended abruptly, leaving me puzzled by the sudden disconnect. This incident slipped my mind until it resurfaced unexpectedly at our party. My mother-in-law revisited the topic, this time questioning why I hadn't offered financial assistance during our call, insinuating that given my stable financial situation, I should have been willing to support her daughter. Her question caught both me and my wife off guard, as it was an unforeseen and frankly inappropriate expectation. She pressed further, suggesting that prioritizing family meant we should have voluntarily proposed to help my sister-in-law financially, asking directly if we would consider providing assistance now. This placed us in an incredibly awkward position, as it was not only an unexpected demand, but also one that overstepped boundaries concerning family support and financial responsibilities. My wife and I were left speechless by the presumption that we should shoulder such a personal and delicate matter without prior discussion or mutual agreement. Before I could even formulate a response to express my regret for not offering financial help, the atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. My father-in-law, who is usually the epitome of calm, stood up in visible anger and confronted my mother-in-law with a question that silenced everyone. When would she cease exploiting our relatives by using their daughter's situation as leverage? His outburst was a rare occurrence, indicating the gravity of the situation and leaving us all in a state of shock and confusion. The tension escalated when, after being challenged, my mother-in-law retorted with indignation, refusing to accept what she perceived as disrespect from him, and abruptly left the house. Her departure left us bewildered, but my father-in-law remained to shed light on the situation. He revealed a troubling pattern of behavior from my mother-in-law, similar to the conversation she had initiated with me. It turned out she had been reaching out to various family members, painting a dire picture of financial strain due to my sister-in-law's drinking problem. This narrative, however, was a facade designed to elicit sympathy and financial assistance from relatives. Unlike my reaction, many had been deceived by her story and had contributed money, believing it would support my sister-in-law's recovery. Instead, these funds were directly enabling her habits, allowing her to continue purchasing alcohol without seeking the professional help she needed. This scheme allowed my mother-in-law to perpetuate her daughter's dependency without dipping into her own finances, all the while avoiding pushing her daughter towards independence or employment. This revelation exposed a manipulative tactic that not only exploited the goodwill of others, but also hindered any real progress for my sister-in-law, all under the guise of maternal concern. Until recently, my mother-in-law's strategy had been quite effective. She had primarily targeted her friends and family for financial assistance, including those present at our announcement dinner. Their frustration was palpable upon realizing they had been misled by her tales of financial hardship. However, her scheme hit a snag when she attempted to involve her husband's sister, who was well aware of how she had been enabling her daughter's problematic behavior. After receiving a manipulative call from my mother-in-law, her sister-in-law wasted no time in alerting my father-in-law about the attempted deceit. This revelation led to a significant confrontation between my parents-in-law just days before our dinner party. My father-in-law was appalled by the lengths his wife was willing to go, essentially resorting to begging friends and family for money to indirectly fuel their daughter's addiction. It's not as though they were in financial straits, with my father-in-law's income as a practicing dental surgeon and my mother-in-law's earnings from her former role as an HR head. Their financial situation was stable enough to afford quality rehabilitation services for their daughter. Yet my mother-in-law chose to exploit the generosity of those around her to conserve her own resources while continuing to support her daughter's harmful habits. The days leading up to our dinner party were marked by silence between them, though they agreed to present a united front for the sake of our celebration. This facade quickly crumbled as my mother-in-law reverted to her manipulative tactics, prompting an intolerable reaction from my father-in-law, who could no longer overlook her actions. This internal conflict, brought to light amidst our happy occasion, underscored the complex dynamics at play within my wife's family. After the confrontation, my father-in-law expressed his apologies for the day's events before departing, followed by the rest of our guests. This left just my wife and me, both of us reeling from the revelations about her mother's actions. I was relieved that I hadn't caught on to her insinuations during our phone call. Had I offered financial help, it would have inadvertently supported my sister-in-law's addiction, effectively squandering the money. Despite the unfortunate turn our party took, my wife and I were determined not to let it dampen our spirits entirely. In an effort to salvage what remained of the evening, we indulged in a simple pleasure: a tub of vanilla ice cream shared between us while enjoying a movie. As the night wound down and my wife stepped away to prepare for bed, I lingered in the living room, savoring a second helping of ice cream, patiently waiting for it to soften just to my liking. It was then that an unexpected knock at the door interrupted the tranquility of our evening. To my astonishment, it was my mother-in-law, her expression seething with anger. The moment I opened the door, she unleashed a torrent of accusations, blaming me for the unraveling of her marriage. She claimed that her husband, my father-in-law, had not only left her, but was also planning to file for divorce, and somehow, in her eyes, I was at fault for these developments. Caught off guard by her sudden appearance and the intensity of her accusations, I found myself at a loss for words. My wife, still in the bathroom and oblivious to the confrontation unfolding at the front door, didn't hear her raised voice as I attempted to reason with her, to clarify that the day's events were a result of her own actions and not mine. The absurdity of being blamed for the consequences of her deception weighed heavily on me. On that tumultuous day, I had initially held my tongue, even poised to extend an apology to her amidst the chaos before my father-in-law stepped in. Attempting to engage in a rational conversation proved futile, as she was utterly closed off to any dialogue. In a moment that shocked me to my core, she expressed a cruel hope that my unborn child would suffer, believing that only then would I truly grasp the extent of her maternal struggles. Her words struck a nerve so deep that I lost all semblance of composure. Driven by a rush of emotion I hardly recognized in myself, the only thing within my grasp was a bowl of partially melted ice cream, which in a fit of uncharacteristic impulsiveness, I hurled at her. The liquid contents splattered across her face and dress, marking a moment of regret that set in almost instantly. Her reaction was immediate and dramatic, her scream suggesting an injury far more severe than the reality of being doused in dessert. Despite the gravity of my actions, I refrained from escalating the situation further by resisting the urge to throw anything that could cause physical harm, mindful of the potential legal repercussions. My wife quickly intervened, ushering her mother inside and providing her with a wet towel and wipes for cleanup, a task I assisted with amidst her continued outbursts. Her reaction, while understandable to some degree, felt disproportionately exaggerated. Once she had managed to regain a semblance of composure, she directed a final, spiteful remark towards me before calling a cab and leaving the scene. It was only after her departure that I could fully explain the incident to my wife. To my relief, she found the situation more amusing than alarming, recognizing the absurdity of the confrontation. Her reaction helped to lighten the mood, providing a moment of levity after a sequence of intensely emotional exchanges. My wife firmly believes her mother got what was coming to her, suggesting I shouldn't have gone out of my way to assist her afterwards, given her lack of deserving such kindness. She pointed out the sheer cruelty in her words about our unborn child and saw my reaction, tossing ice cream at her as relatively mild. She even mentioned that others, perhaps more overwhelmed by hormones, might have escalated to throwing the entire bowl at her, indicating she got off lightly. While she seems to view the situation with a certain levity, I'm left grappling with mixed feelings. It's unlike me to lose control in such a manner, and I'm deeply troubled by my actions. In seeking advice, I turned to my parents, who, while disapproving of my mother-in-law's harsh words, cautioned me about the potential danger of my reaction. Throwing the bowl could have resulted in serious harm, they noted, a scenario thankfully avoided. Now I'm torn over the appropriate next steps. Should I extend an apology for my impulsive action, or was my response understandable given the provocation? The dilemma is compounded by my own principles. I've always prided myself on maintaining composure, making this lapse all the more unsettling. Wrestling with whether my reaction was an overreaction, I find myself questioning not just the incident itself, but the broader implications of how we handle moments of intense emotional stress within our family dynamics. Update. Hello again, and thank you all for your supportive words regarding my initial post about the altercation with my mother-in-law. A week has passed since that unfortunate day, and I nearly reached out with an apology to her, against the tide of advice from many of you. However, recent events have starkly reminded me why such a gesture might have been misplaced. Late last night, I received a video message from both my mother-in-law and her daughter. The content was nothing short of appalling, with both appearing heavily intoxicated and hurling abhorrent insults and wishes towards me, my family, and my unborn child. Their words sank to depths of malice that I would never have anticipated, and out of respect for everyone, including my own peace, I choose not to relay their exact words here. Suffice it to say, their behavior was despicable. The severity of their vitriol pushed my wife to the brink of involving law enforcement, a step I ultimately dissuaded her from taking. Introducing legal action into an already volatile situation seemed to promise more stress than resolution, especially considering my current state as an expectant working father. My capacity to navigate additional turmoil is understandably limited. In a significant turn of events, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law find themselves isolated, as my father-in-law vacated their shared home the day following the ice cream incident. He now resides with his sibling, distancing himself from the escalating conflict within our family. This development underscores the profound impact of their actions, not just on our relationship, but on the family's unity as a whole. Last night, we paid a visit to my father-in-law, during which I shared the distressing video sent by his wife and daughter. This was done in hopes of aiding his decision to divorce, a choice that visibly overwhelmed him with emotion. Witnessing his breakdown was heart-wrenching, especially since he's been a paternal figure to me. The moment was charged with sorrow, nearly bringing me to tears as well. My wife, by contrast, remained silent, a testament to her inner turmoil and her struggle to express feelings. I understand she prefers to process her emotions privately, and while I respect her approach, my hope is that she doesn't shoulder these burdens alone to the point of distress. Our visit was primarily to assist my father-in-law in selecting a divorce attorney, connecting him with a trusted friend who specializes in such matters. Given the lengthy marriage of over 3 decades, we anticipated complex legal challenges ahead, especially if my mother-in-law chose to dispute the divorce. It felt imperative for us to support him through this trying period, ensuring he had access to the best possible legal counsel. Just a week after filing for divorce, my mother-in-law has escalated her efforts to halt the proceedings, resorting to confrontations at his current residence with his brother. Her actions, driven by a misplaced belief that aggression could mend their relationship, have only served to further strain the situation. In a surprising turn, she even extended an apology to me, perhaps hoping it might sway the outcome in her favor. However, her attempts at reconciliation, much like her approach to resolving her marriage, have been futile. I communicated to her that while I forgive her, I have no desire to engage in further conversation, nor do I see any way to assist in mending her relationship with her husband. He made his decision independently, and it wasn't my place to intervene in matters that I was never involved in. It baffles me that I had to clarify this stance to her once again. Her recent behavior has been marked by a flurry of apologies to our extended family, an attempt to atone for the money she had borrowed under false pretenses. Remarkably, Those she owed were gracious enough not to press for repayment, yet she's been insisting on settling her debts, believing it might pave the way for a reconciliation with her estranged husband. Due to my busy schedule, juggling work commitments with the anticipation of necessary medical appointments, I haven't seen my father-in-law recently. My wife, however, has maintained contact and shared insights that paint a bleak picture regarding the possibility of his parents' reconciliation. It turns out that the issues plaguing their marriage extend far beyond financial deceit and the enablement of their daughter's unhealthy habits. Since filing for divorce, my father-in-law has begun to share more about the deeper problems within their relationship. Learning the extent of these issues has led me to reevaluate my understanding of my mother-in-law. Given what has now come to light, it's astonishing that my father-in-law managed to remain in the marriage for as many years as he did. The revelations have only added layers of complexity to an already complicated family dynamic, highlighting a troubling portrait of a woman who in many ways remained a stranger to us until now. My mother-in-law's deceitful history with finances emerged early in their marriage, a revelation that came as a shock to my father-in-law. He discovered the accumulation of secret debts she had incurred, stepping in to clear them and seeking her commitment to financial transparency moving forward. At that time, their modest means could partially explain her need to borrow money, but her continued stinginess and lack of honesty in recent years lack any justification. Beyond financial issues, her overall behavior has been a source of constant tension. She took her husband's support for granted, neglecting her share of household responsibilities under the guise of feeling unwell, leaving my father-in-law burdened with chores, especially on his days off. Her manner of speaking to him, her insistence on enabling their daughter's unhealthy habits, and her opposition to seeking professional help for her only added to the strain. Faced with her refusal to change or seek a healthier path for their family, my father-in-law reached his breaking point. He decided that ending the marriage was the only viable option to reclaim his life and find peace away from the turmoil that had become his daily existence. It's a decision that, given the circumstances, seems not only understandable, but necessary for his well-being. Update: I've been away from Reddit these past few weeks, caught up in the whirlwind of work commitments and hospital visits, leaving me little time to share these developments. A few weeks back, I experienced a health scare when my blood sugar levels dropped significantly. This led to multiple hospital visits, as I was concerned about potential complications affecting my pregnancy. Fortunately, after a thorough checkup, my doctor reassured me that there was no cause for alarm. It turns out my anxiety had gotten the best of me, leading to a drastic dietary change that was responsible for the drop in my blood sugar. I'm relieved to report that I'm back to feeling healthy and well now. Moving on to the update, many of you have been curious about my mother-in-law and the divorce proceedings. The process is currently underway, with both parties engaged in the negotiation phase. My mother-in-law has seemingly accepted the reality of the situation, no longer attempting to reconcile with my father-in-law and choosing not to challenge the divorce. However, the division of assets and property has proven to be a contentious issue. After over 3 decades of marriage, disentangling their joint finances and deciding the fate of shared property is a complex task. The primary point of dispute is their family home, where they've lived for the majority of their marriage. My father-in-law has made a proposal that seems both fair and logical: to sell the house and equally divide the proceeds. This suggestion harks back to how they originally acquired the home, pooling their resources together shortly after getting married. It stands to reason that splitting the proceeds would honor the spirit of their initial agreement. Despite this, my mother-in-law is holding out for sole ownership of the house, a stance that complicates the negotiations and highlights the difficulties inherent in dividing a life built together over so many years. At this juncture, the divorce proceedings seem to be at a standstill, primarily due to the disagreement over the division of their house. However, I'm fairly confident that my mother-in-law won't manage to sway the situation entirely in her favor, and even in a scenario where she somehow prevails, my father-in-law is financially secure, with ample resources to enjoy a comfortable retirement independently. On the other hand, my mother-in-law faces the daunting task of repaying debts to those she borrowed from, a commitment she made in her bid to reconcile with her husband. In light of everything that has transpired, both my wife and I have severed our connections with her mother and sister. There hasn't been any attempt from their side to reach out to us, and frankly, I don't foresee any reconciliation happening anytime soon. Our stance, particularly our support for my father-in-law throughout this ordeal, aligns with my wife's long-standing affinity towards her father, making our decision unsurprising to anyone involved. As we navigate through this tumultuous period, I remain hopeful that the coming weeks will bring some resolution to the divorce process, allowing everyone involved to move forward. Keeping a positive outlook, I'm eager to update you all with hopefully favorable developments regarding the situation.